The EuroFighter Typhoon is one of the most popular vehicles in Warthunder, and I hate to say it, but I'm not really a fan of it. But that's not to say it's a bad vehicle. In fact, it's a very good vehicle. In this overview video, I'm going to kind of make it a little bit different. Usually I go over the pros and cons of a vehicle, but instead I'm going to kind of rate it on a 100-point basis. First up, its speed. It's very good on the deck, and it could be very good up in the air, although it is on the lower end in its BR bracket. Its max speed is 2,149 kilometers per hour at 11,000 meters. But that's not actually what makes EuroFighter good. It's actually its acceleration. How fast you can get to 0 to Mach 1 is extremely dependent on your fuel and your armament type, but it is one of the best in the game. So I'm going to place it at a solid 8 out of 10 just because it is missing some of the max speed that you can see in top tier. Next up is maneuverability. It is a delta wing, so it's going to pull high Gs very easily, and it does. You can max out like 15 to 16 Gs if you're full afterburner and pulling, but it still gets outmaneuvered by the Rafale and the F-16 AJ, and it is quite competitive if you're versing a Gripen. The only time it really suffers maneuverability is the fact that it kind of compresses. It's better than most vehicles, but it still gets beat a bit. But if you are a good enough pilot, you should beat all of them, so I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 for maneuverability. As for its offensive armament, you get AM-9Ms, AM-120Bs, and a 27mm cannon. This is technically the best loadout you could possibly get in Warthunder. The 27mm cannon is lacking a little bit of ammo, but I don't think I should deduct any points off of that. In fact, I love the 27mm. The thing hits like a truck and sounds great. The only time the Eurofighter lacks offensively is in very close combat situations. Its armament can't keep up with the R-73 and the Mika in such close quarters. Since that's pretty easily avoidable, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 for offensive armament. As for its defensive armament, it gets over 400 countermeasures, with 64 being large caliber. It also gets a really good MAW and a really good RWR to match it. The only other top tier jet that surpasses the Eurofighter in the amount of defense it gets is the Gripen. And when you play the game, if you're using that many countermeasures, you're playing it wrong. So it gets a 10 out of 10 on defensive armament. Moving on to cast, this thing is an absolute beast with the brimstones. In fact, you get 18 total brimstones. And with a guidance time of 60 seconds and a max speed of Mach 1.4, you can sling these things really far. Although for cast options, the Eurofighter is missing a lot of fire and forget, although it does get GPU-59B LJDAMs, which kind of makes up for that, although they are quite small. So I'm giving the Eurofighter a nice 7 out of 10 for cast ability. For electronics, it does get HMD, 2 variants get IRST, it has a Lightning 3 targeting pod and a built-in targeting pod. Although its radar is currently lacking because it is pretty much just an improved Sea Harrier variant, and it should be much better than it is in game. So in total, I'm going to give it a nice 8 out of 10 because the radar is dragging it down so much. Durability wise, it is a delta wing, so it's not going to survive very many hits. In fact, majority of the time I get hit in this thing, I usually go down just because it becomes really unstable. So I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. Although most aircraft aren't going to be that durable, this thing just seems extra flimsy. As for difficulty, with 1 being the hardest and 10 being the easiest, I give the Eurofighter a nice rating of 3. You do have to have a wide understanding of Fox 3s and radars to use this thing. You're also dealing with a really fast delta wing that pulls really hard, so you have to know how to manage all of that. All in all, it makes it quite difficult, especially for new players, to play this thing. And as for fun value, with 10 being the most fun, I give it a 5. The most fun I ever had playing the Typhoon was in ground battles. Using the brimstones and hitting SPAA that was firing back at me was actually a really fun challenge. But when you're playing air battles, a lot of the time you're going to be playing BVR, and it's kind of just like fire missile simulator, and something about firing missiles at a blank screen is not that fun. When you do actually get into a dogfight, majority of the time is just spent defending and you don't actually get into dogfights. And when you do, a majority of the time it's over pretty quickly because you can just spam missiles. And as for the final one, that doesn't really matter, it's looks. Overall, the EuroFighter Typhoon has a really sleek and mean look. But me personally, I kind of like the smaller fighter jets, but still I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. That gives the EuroFighter Typhoon a rating of 72 out of 100. If you go over and take a look at the grading scale that I've made for these type of videos, it gets a B rating. So overall, it is a really good vehicle, although there are some flaws about it that make it not so fun to play, but in the long run, you should do very well in this vehicle.